Hey sportsmen, John Bergsman here from the Great Lakes Insider Fishing Report, and today we're happy to have a new partner of the show for the whole year helping us with fishing reports from the greater Manistee County region, Bob from up at Tangled Tackle. Bob, how you doing?
Doing okay.
Doing okay. Well, okay is better than bad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just getting over a bad cold.
Oh, that's too bad. And I know you got the day off, but you are kind enough to join us because we're a day behind on our fishing reports because of the holidays. But we've got some super cold weather. We've got some lakes that are tightening up. So let's take a couple of lakes specifically that I know a lot of guys that visit your shop like to fish. And the first one we'll start off with Portage Lake. Give us the good lowdown on what's going on right now or just beginning to go on Portage.
Basically, it's been the east end of the lake, which is the shallowest, and that is the portion that gets the first ice. Guys are getting perch. They're sporadic. They're doing a lot of sorting, but I did have 3 or 4 guys that come in and had some really good catches this weekend, even in this cold weather. So,
well, that's encouraging because I tell you what, sometimes cold weather will knock the bite down. So talk to me, Bob. When guys come into the store, what type of stuff are they buying? Let's say we got some people come up from downstate that really aren't super familiar with how to set their poles up there on Portage Lake. Give me a couple of presentations that are the most prevalent for there at Portage.
I always suggest the Haley spoons for guys that are interested in perch. And it seems on Portage, the color tone is the orange and gold Haleys and like the perch colors with like the bloody nose or red head.
Yep.
Them seem to be the 2 best color tones on Portage Lake. So I'll steer them in that direction. And if they're looking for panfish, then of course, you know, most of them will be interested in tungsten jigs. Them are pretty much the thing to use nowadays. They're so much more dense and they get down so much faster. And it seems like the orange color tones, even in your panfish teardrop, the orange seems to be the ticket too. So
perfect. Well, that must be something that just for whatever reason shows up good to the fish. You know, we're not fish, so we don't always know. But one thing you know is when people come in and start buying stuff, they're catching fish on it. So what are they on those Haley spoons? Now, obviously, the stuff you're talking about, you got it right there on Main Drag and on the shelf there at Tangled Tackle, correct? For people to come right in?
Correct.
Good. And what type of baits would you suggest on the Haley spoon? How should they tip that?
Guys will use wigglers. You know, they'll tip it with the minnows, sometimes wax worms, but I'm sure most people are aware perch can be finicky critters. So on any given day, minnows might be the ticket, and the next day it might be wigglers. So, you know, you should, if you're going to go out perch fishing on Portage Lake, you should be armed with both.
For
sure.
Sure.
And try one on each rod and see what, you know, it seems like they like either minnows or wigglers that day, and then switch everything up to it. So.
Exactly. You know, one of the things you just mentioned is one of the things that most avid ice fishermen know, but a lot of rookies don't, is that when you have that 2-rod setup that you're talking about, it's really super smart to have one of those rods almost just be a laid on the ice type scenario where it acts like a dead rod, and the other one you can have in your hand where you're imparting a little action, because at times, am I wrong, Bob? They'll also they'll also prefer either no action or lots of movement, and that can just as much be the ticket,
especially in this cold weather condition.
Yes. And big perch, I found, the other thing about perch is when you get a group of them around you, let's say you attract 1 in, then 2 in, then 3 in, and then 4, and if you're in shallow enough water, you can sometimes see them through your hole. But it cracks me up how when you get a group of fish around, at some point one of them gets an idea to hit your bait, and it seems like the very thought of hitting your bait causes a mad rush to your bait.
Yes, it does. And one encouraging sign, you know, I got a couple of guys that come in the shop a lot. They said that, you know, normally the bigger perch, I don't know, on Portage, they'll come in like 2s or 3s, you know, and I'm talking like the 11, 12, 13 inches. They said that they've had a few schools go by where there was a dozen big perch in there.
Huh.
And that's a really good scenario because then there's competition.
Absolutely, and that usually triggers a bite. It's almost impossible for you to get any more than 3 or 4 fish looking at your jig at once before one of them gets a wild hair and decides to hit. So that's perfect. Well, let's talk just a minute about any other lakes that guys that come up by Tangled Tackle have been fishing.
Well, I would like to add one more thing about portage before we switch to another lake.
Okay.
Since you can use 3 lines, a lot of times I will suggest guys set a tip up on portage because there is a lot of nice pike in there too.
Oh,
so.
Portage is a phenomenal pike lake. You know, we filmed a bass show there last year, but I'm telling you what, we lost probably 3 or 4 of our rigs, and it was just like set the hook and just nothing. And you bring it in, it's a perfectly clean cut. And back when I had a cottage on Portage Lake and vacation there, one of the things that I knew was that guys would troll crankbaits all summer long off the weed beds. And these guys would come in with 12, 14, even 20-pound northerns out of that lake.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of them in there.
Yeah.
And then you get the Lake Michigan pike coming in February, too. So that
exactly.
Even makes it better,
and they're coming in just following the bait and coming into the shallow, more confined water. So what about Hamlin Lake? Has any of your guys been fishing down at Hamlin?
Yep. Yeah, they're getting bluegills on the north end. Wilson Park, you know, you got to take a little jaunt. It's about a quarter-mile walk if you're walking, if you don't have wheels. But I'm hearing that the ice there is good enough for a four-wheeler now.
Right.
And that's the north end where it's more shallow, and, you know, ice forms a lot better there.
Yep.
And that's the same exact thing, you know. Use a couple jigging rods, put a minnow down for a crappie, and then have your bluegill rod, and then, you know, get out about 50, 75 yards away from where you're jigging and set a tip up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nice pike in Hamlin also.
Oh, man, yeah. And that's such a weedy lake on that north end, and it just, you know, a lot of people in the open water period of time, you know, shy away from weeds because they don't quite understand how to fish it. And that's one of the things we're going to do on our fishing reports this year is talk about exactly how to fish those circumstances. As we talk about them, we're going to go to some demonstration stuff. But in the wintertime, those old weeds are your friend because they hold the smaller fish, and that's what attracts those bigger fish.
Jumping over to Manistee Lake, guys are just starting to fish that.
Okay.
I am not suggesting people go out on that ice yet. Manistee Lake is a very dangerous lake, being a drowned river mouth.
Correct.
You have the channel, you have the big Manistee, the little Manistee all dumping in there, and plus there's a lot of air bubbles and pockets. So I'm not suggesting anybody go out, but there was some guys fishing off of East Lake, Penny Park, and off of 9th Street. I did not get any reports as to what the catches were, but they're starting to fish Manistee Lake now too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, and I heard from Phil Settlemeyer that there's going to be a fun fishing, kind of like a little derby go on out of Onekama this weekend on Saturday.
Yeah, the Manistee County Sport Fishing Association is sponsoring it.
Okay, perfect. So just anybody can show up. They can pay what, a $5 entry fee,
Yep.
and
I think it's $5 entry fee, correct?
Yeah, and it's 100% payout. It's really more just for getting people on the lake, enjoying fishing, enjoying the fun, families, groups of guys, kids even. And then the ice cream shop right there by the boat launch looks like that's going to be the weigh-in spot. And then they're also going to possibly have some food indoors and warm people up, correct?
Yep, correct.
Oh, man, that sounds like a lot of fun. So the hours of that are 7 to 2. Am I right, Bob?
What's that?
I think the hours for fishing are 7 to 2 in the afternoon, 7 in the morning till 2.
Correct, yeah.
And then they'll weigh in, and there'll be people hanging around, I'm sure, until 6 o'clock at night. But if you're looking for something fun to do, Manistee, Michigan, the little town of Onekama on Saturday's got a little fishing derby going on. Bob, we're going to be calling you every other week from here on out, and we can't wait for open water because I know a lot of people ice fish. I report on ice fishing. I go ice fishing when I have to, but I'm really kind of warm-blooded, so I'll be excited when you and I are talking about open water fishing.
Yeah, me too. I agree. Every year I get older, the less I like ice fishing, it seems, but I still go. So.
I know. I hear you. Well, thanks for the report, Bob, and we'll chat with you again in a couple of weeks.
You bet. Take her easy. Thank you.
Yep.